My name is Lindsey Curnutte, and this is On Air with Heritage Action, a podcast built for conservatives. Twice a week, we break down in 5-ish minutes or less how you can get involved today in the fight for conservative values. Hello, welcome back. Today we're talking about the House vote that's happening tomorrow on the Democrats' version of their China manufacturing bill. So they're calling it the American Competes Act. It's HR 4521, but it really should be called the American Concedes Act. This is a 3,000-page bill that really does little to achieve the goal of stopping and kind of countering that ongoing threat from the Chinese Communist Party. Instead, it spends over $300 billion to provide bailouts to chip manufacturers, bailouts to these Democrat-backed corporations as well. It also bails out the woke education industry and left-wing climate groups. I expect nothing else, but this could actually, in the end, benefit this communist China regime. So here to discuss that is Heritage Action's Manager of House Relations, Walker Gallman. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Lindsey. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, this will be great. So this bill, Heritage Action is firmly against it. In fact, we are actually introducing and releasing our key vote no on the bill today, which means we're urging all members to vote against it in the House, this American Concedes Act. And we were also going to include it on our legislative scorecard. So Walker, can you talk about what's in the bill and why we're voting or key voting no and asking members to vote no?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you're likely aware, the U.S. is in a long-term strategic competition with China. This competition is one of the most critical and consequential international threats that our nation faces, and action is needed by Congress to ensure America doesn't lose its competitive edge on the global stage. I mean, it's super important. In light of this, there have been a number of proposals introduced in Congress to address this issue, with the latest being the House Democrats' so-called America Competes Act. While the purpose of this bill was supposed to be keeping America competitive as China's influence continues to grow around the globe, the bill does nothing to accomplish this goal and is so bad that conservatives have now dubbed it the America Concedes Act, as you noted before. As the bill is nearly 3,000 pages, it would be impossible for me to cover everything in the proposal during this episode. However, a major takeaway is that very little of what's in this bill has any relevance to China. Instead, the bill will spend more than $300 billion and provide bailouts for chip manufacturers and Democrat-aligned corporations, the woke education industry, and left-wing climate groups. On top of that, the bill would create additional debt, add to inflationary pressure, increase regulatory costs, and intervene in the market on behalf of well-connected business interests. In sum, it would damage the U.S. economy rather than put us at a competitive advantage with China. Much of the bill actually rehashes Democrats' other failed initiatives like the Build Back Better Act and the Green New Deal by intertwining government programs and grants with onerous new labor union requirements and spending billions of dollars on climate programs that aren't even related to China. The bill even mentions coral reef more often than it does China, the very threat the bill claims to be addressing. Also, it even goes as far as to establish a new visa program that would allow wealthy foreigners to purchase their visas, then come to the U.S., start a company, and then you purchase additional visas to import more foreign labor. What you may not even realize is that the current Homeland Security Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas, has been accused of doling out similar visas as political favors already. So, there's a lot more I could go into on this bill and exactly how bad and just how misguided it is in actually trying to achieve its goal of making sure that we remain competitive with China.
Interesting. I find that really interesting. The coral reef is mentioned more in the bill than China is. I mean, that's where the Democrat Party's at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, another point to make is a lot of what's in the bill isn't even legally binding. They use what's called a sense of Congress to say this is how Congress feels about an issue, rather to say this is what's going to happen, this is what we need to do. So, a sense of Congress is about as binding as a New Year's resolution. So, we want actual laws that are enforceable so that we can hold China accountable.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, there you have it. It sounds like we shouldn't be buying into the spin that Democrats are putting out about this bill. So the White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain actually responded to that tweet and said, more jobs, lower cost, more manufacturing in the U.S. This bill won a huge bipartisan vote in the Senate. This bill that he was referring to, it's not really related to the topic, but I don't think it's bipartisan, and I don't think the bill in the House is bipartisan either. That's what Heritage Action is saying. But is Ron Klain right here? Is this bill in the House that we're talking about, the America Concedes Act, is it bipartisan as well?
Yeah, so what Ron Klain is saying is very misleading. The one thing that he did say that was truthful is that we're whipping against the House bill. For starters, the House bill isn't the same as the Senate bill that Ron Klain is referring to. This is an entirely different product that hasn't received a vote in either chamber and is most certainly not bipartisan. There won't be any Republican support for this.
Good to know.
While there may be some minor similarities between the House and Senate bills, to suggest that they're the same and that it has bipartisan support is a blatant lie. Also, to be fair, the Senate bill did pass with bipartisan support, but again, it's a different bill than what's being voted on in the House. Also, don't think for a minute that because it was bipartisan that it makes it a good proposal. The Senate bill still fell short of its goals, and if enacted, would have done more to damage the U.S. economy than it would to improve America's competitive position with China.
And that's why Republicans are against it. It sounds like you're saying you don't expect any Republicans to vote for this.
Yeah, as it stands, this was written purely on partisan lines without input from Republicans.
Okay.
It doesn't have any prospect of being bipartisan. And then once it passes the House along party lines with Democrat votes, it's dead in the Senate. A lot of what's in there is unpalatable to the Senate. And so I don't see this proposal going any further than the House.
Okay, good to know. So bottom line, don't buy into the White House's spin here. That's usually the case with these kind of things, but we just want to reiterate that. H.R. 4521 is that bad bill we're talking about in the House. It's not bipartisan because Dems had really added a lot of funding in for their own liberal priorities. Go figure, that happens all the time with their bills. So that's why we're issuing this key vote against the bill. We're wanting to make sure all members know that this is a bad bill and to vote against it. So we're going to add a link to the key vote in the description of this podcast. But as always, regardless of if we think Republicans are going to all vote against this bill, you still have to let your member know how you feel about it. Call your member, urge them to vote no on the America Concedes Act, H.R. 4521. So thanks so much for joining us today and breaking that down, Walker.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for another episode of On Air with Heritage Action. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard in today's episode, please click the follow button. If you want to receive a text message each time a new episode airs, text podcast to 51776 and you'll never miss an episode. That's podcast to 51776. Hi, it's me again, and we need your help. If you like the insights and activist resources that we're providing, please take just 1 minute and help us spread the word. So follow, like, subscribe, and share this episode of On Air with Heritage Action with your friends and family on social media or even over email or text. We need your help to get others involved in the fight to hold Washington accountable. And don't forget, you are also able to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcasting app on your smartphone. So in-app, you're going to search for On Air with Heritage Action and subscribe so you can download episodes and listen on the go. It's the best way to make sure you never miss a thing. Thanks.